everybody, and it's our pleasure to host this webinar today as part of the 4th International Conference on Financing for Development. I would like to start by welcoming all of our panelists and speakers, but of course all of you that are joining us for this 1.5 hour. The program will be as follows. After my very short introduction, we will have a introduction to the topic by Professor Mohan Kankahali from the National University of Singapore. Then we will have a panel. I will introduce the panelists briefly as we move into the panel part. The panel will start with some introductions and statements by the panelists, and then there will be a question and interaction between the panelists themselves. But it's also after that opportunity for all of you to pose questions. I would like to advise you to use the Q&A option in your screen to indicate your questions, and you can do that at any time. And we will make sure that when we move to the discussion, the overall discussion with all of you, that we will select from the Q&A and we will try to enable you to put your question in person. So after this very short household announcement, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Virginia Dignam. I'm a professor of responsible artificial intelligence at Umeå University in Sweden, where I'm also leading the AI Policy Lab. I'm together with Gina Matthews, which is here today, the co-chairs for the ACM Technology Policy Council, and I will be the moderator of today. As we start, I would like to invite Professor Yanis Ioannidis, who is the president of ACM, to just give us a very short introduction, at least for the ones of you that are not do not know the association, to get a little bit of idea of what we are and what we do. Yanis?
Thank you, Virginia. It's a pleasure to welcome you all. This is ACM, has been an accredited organization of the Financing for Development conference that we are at here. And it is, for me, it is a pivotal moment because the technology that we do as computing scientists is very fundamental in finance and in all activities to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals and everything else that is necessary so that everyone's life is developed. It's the world's largest association of computing professionals, about 120,000 members, touching and interacting with about 5 million computing professionals and also advanced users of computing. Our goal is to advance computing as a science and as a profession, having in mind not only professional, but also public interest and using the highest ethics, not just within our processes, but also on how we affect the world. The topic of the whole conference and also our theme has a lot to do with policy, and Virginia and Gina are chairing the Global Technology Policy Council, and we have regional subcommittees and so on. And we're trying to serve equally the 3 pillars of the triangle of knowledge, research, education, and innovation in industrial innovation. So that's in very short summary, acm.org, and you'll find all the information you want about ACM. Welcome again.
Thank you very much, Yanis. So what are our aims for today? Of course, fitting and aligning with the whole theme of the conference, we are looking at promote financing and supporting sustainable financing for equitable digital infrastructure and public goods. We do that, and we would like to discuss that in linking it to the issues of ethical AI governance to ensure the effective and inclusive development of finance, development finance, and financing for development. At the same time, we will be looking at how can we address the risks of digital exclusion and of poorly governed technology. And finally, one of the aims is also to highlight what is the role that we as ACM could or are doing or should be doing in shaping the responsible tech standards in this field. So without further ado, I would like just to very briefly introduce all the panelists and keynote. So as I already said before, Professor Mohan Kankahali from the National University of Singapore will give a short introductory keynote. Mohan is a professor of computing science and is a prominent voice in AI and data privacy. Then we are joined also by Professor Fiba Condori, who is a renowned international environmental economist and sustainability expert. And she's in that, from her expertise, she's advising many international organizations on climate and on development policy. Yanis Ioannidis, which just introduced ACM to you, is a professor of informatics at the University of Athens and is currently serving as the president of ACM. Then we have Csaba Korosi, who is a Hungarian diplomat who has served as president of the 77th United Nations General Assembly and is also the previous director for environmental sustainability in Hungary's president's office. We also have the honor to have Eka Txeslavili, I'm very sorry for mispronouncing your name, who is former Deputy Prime Minister of Georgia, where also she served as Minister of Justice, Foreign Affairs, and the State Minister for the Reintegration of Georgia. Michael McFarland, who is a technology strategist known for his work in ethical AI and digital governance in the private sector. And finally, at last but not least, Gina Matthews, a computer science professor at the Clarkson University, who is an ACM distinguished speaker, a member of the ACM Council, and as we indicate already before, co-chair with me of the ACM Technology Policy, Global Technology Policy Council. So without further ado, I would like to give the opportunity to Mohan to give us a short introduction to the topic.
Thank you, Virginia. Let me share my slides. Okay, I hope you can see my slides. Yeah, okay.
We see the presenter's view and not the presentation view.
Okay. Is this okay now?
Yes.
Is this all right? Yeah, okay. All right. Thank you for that introduction. Let me kind of go right into the topic. Before I start, I would just like to give some background and my experience in this area so that it kind of shows, it's some relevance to the topic. So I used to be the dean of the NUS School of Computing. And as a dean, I actually worked with our central bank or the Fed, Monetary Authority of Singapore, which is also our financial regulator, to set up a research institute called the Asian Institute of Digital Finance, which is based in the US. I'm also the Deputy Executive Chairman of AI Singapore, Singapore's National AI R&D program. And, this has some relevance as I'll speak about it shortly. Singapore has been running the Singapore FinTech Festival and it has been a very successful festival. It combines technology with finance. Singapore is one of the global nodes of finance, and this has been 10 years in the running. So the Singapore FinTech Festival is in November every year, and in 2025 it is going to be the 10th year. And I used to be the AI advisor for the 2023 one. And I also was a panelist for IOSCO, which is the Organization of the Securities Commissions of the world, on their FinTech task force roundtable on AI. So let me dive right into the topic. So as part of AI Singapore, we have 5 pillars, and one of the pillars is on AI technology, where we run AI grand challenges. In 2023, uh, we collaborated with the Monetary Authority of Singapore to run a global challenge in AI in finance. This was, and I have the QR code here if you are interested in the details. Of course, it had very lucrative prices, and the challenge is over. But what is interesting is some of the things which we did as part of that challenge is still very relevant today. So what Monetary Authority of Singapore did along with AI Singapore was we worked with many companies, global companies in finance, and basically had a surveys, focus group discussion, and basically interactions to understand how AI can help the finance industry as a whole. And then we wanted to come up with a set of challenges for technologies in able to help the finance industry. And this got distilled down into 16 problem statements. So I'm going to quickly go over the problem statements, and they were categorized into a few categories. The first category was on improving the customer experience. And an example is, I'm not going to go through all of them. I think the first one is how AI can help provide hyper-personalized experiences for customers through analysis of all their data and other customers' data to understand their needs and expectation and give them the right advice, right recommendation, and the right solution for their needs. And there is hope that AI can help for that. And likewise, we have the other challenge statements for AI to help the finance industry. So these are all about the improving the customer experience. The second class of problem statements are about making the whole finance industry operations more efficient. For example, the first statement is about how predictive AI can help trading institutions, asset managers, and investors manage portfolios better and come up with better strategies for trading. Or, for example, how can we, if you see number 4, how can AI be used to effectively triage and process claim submission, be it insurance, be it loans, be it any other thing. So I think there is tremendous, opportunity for AI to significantly improve the efficiencies of financial institutions. The third class of statements are more interesting. This is more about some of the downsides of AI and downsides of technology. So the first statement is how can AI flag potential risks and fraud detection and you can do early intervention while maintaining customer privacy. The second one is how about AI can analyze data to quantify and map risk levels of portfolios or a client or an entire supply chain and against various risks. Or you can try to improve the investor confidence of the company valuation, because company valuation is very important for the stock markets to function efficiently. Or the statement number 4 is how can AI help monitor any suspicious activity, either by employees or vendors or contractors, or monitoring social media platform for any type of unauthorized activities which leads to money laundering or any such things. And of course, finally, Monetary Authority of Singapore is a regulator itself. And how can AI help companies keep up with regulation? Because regulation is also become very complicated. And to make institutions compliant with regulation itself is a challenge. And the last set of statements are about environmental, social, and governance solution. So how can AI support organizations and investors to measure, track, validate climate risk, emissions, ESG data effectively and reliably? Or finally, AI can help support in net zero planning. And how can you do the proper decarbonization pathways, have sustainability performance targets, sustainability linked loans, and turn the whole finance industry into a force for good in helping sustainability. So these are still very relevant. These challenges are still not solved, and I think there is not just opportunity, but also a risk if we don't solve these. Um, as I said, AI and in general technology offers both hope and despair. And hope, and I'll give you an example. I'm originally from India, and the India stack is a very prominent example of where technology has made a huge difference to the economy, to the ordinary people through the identity card Aadhaar, and for UPI, which is a payment system for making low value payments, and really increased financial accessibility, financial sustainability, and really enable the digital economy in India. On the other hand, I would also, to give a balanced picture, I would like to show you this screenshot. This is basically a website called Scam Shield in Singapore. It is run by the Singapore government, and it has a monthly scam counter. And it is depressing to see in the month of May 2025, there were more than 3,500 cases of scamming only in Singapore, which is a city country. And almost amount lost was $113 million in just 1 month. And technology is being used for a lot of this scamming. People are using generative AI to pose as fraudulent relatives or fraudulent officers, or even as help desk people to make people kind of download apps onto their phones and then hack through their system. So I think technology, as I said, is a double-edged sword, and we need to be careful about that. I would highly recommend, if you are interested in this, the Monetary Authority of Singapore put out this information paper last December on the artificial intelligence model risk management, and it considers a variety of risks: financial risks, operational risk, regulatory risk, and reputational risk on the use of AI in the finance industry. It could be banking, it could be an investment firm, it could be an insurance firm, it could be anything. Finally, I would also like to come back what I mentioned about the Asian Institute of Digital Finance. This is a research institute based in NUS, and one of the good things which this institute has done has developed a fintech literacy program. And this is for anybody. It could be an ordinary person or a person working in the finance industry, and it's a free 16-hour course, online course, which is available. And it covers a whole gamut of issues in the use of technology in the finance industry, and this is available for free. I think we need, in terms of making the full power of finance to be used, or technology to be used in finance, to make this technology accessible to everyone. To summarize, since I have 10 minutes, I have a lot to say, but I think we'll discuss in our panel discussion. I think there are a whole bunch of promises, and I've listed about 10 of them on the left-hand side. AI and technology promises to help a lot in improving the entire overall experience, bring in efficiencies, make finance more sustainable. On the other hand, there are also the risk of bias, of algorithmic transparency, of data security, of model errors. Also, when I did work with the Security and Exchange Commission, there could be systemic risk. If all the companies in the world use the same 2-3 models and they have the same problem, there can be a systemic risk in the entire global financial system. And finally, of course, the most important thing is there has to be human oversight in technology deployment. And we also have to worry about the job risk in that. So I hope we are going to have an exciting panel with the distinguished panelists as we move along. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Much, Mohan. Thank you for being able to interview all the complexity of the complex interactions between AI, finance, digital technology, both on the enormous opportunities, but also the very large risks. So I think it's a very good starting point for this discussion today. I will encourage everyone to include any questions to Mohan in the Q&A feature of the Zoom, but I would like to move on to our panelists, and I'm going to do it in alphabetical order of surnames, which means we are starting with it should be Yanis, but Yanis already spoke, so I will give the opportunity first to Phoebe. Please, Phoebe, you have around 4 or 5 minutes to introduce yourself, your topic, but also your position in this complex field. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me in this truly interesting panel. I devoted my life to developing innovative systems transformations with an aim to achieve the needed sustainable interaction between nature, economy, and society. So I'm a professor in economics, but my affiliation is a revealing of my work. At the Athens University of Economics and Business, I am a professor at the School of Economics, a professor in economics, mathematical economics, and econometrics. And in Cambridge University, the other half of my professorship, I am affiliated with earth sciences. This showcases that my aim, my vision, my work integrates the natural systems with the socioeconomic systems. And today we try to introduce the work of Alliance of Excellence for Research and Innovation on IFORIA and show how leveraging AI for sustainable development and financing sustainable development can be crucial, a crucial mobilizer. So at the moment, we all know we are in this multi-crisis, the low economic growth, the shrinking national fiscal spaces, inflationary pressures, climate change, biodiversity collapse, population pressures in Asia, increasing population in Europe and the Western world, aging population, increasing inequalities within countries and across the global south and the global north, and all of this leading to geopolitical pressures. In 2015, we have defined explicitly what sustainable development is, 17 goals, 4 goals about nature, natural systems, 8 goals about social and cultural systems, 4 goals about economic systems, and the final goal about partnerships for achieving this integrated and holistic framework of goals on the ground, implementing the goals. This is a network. This is a framework of 169 targets within these goals. And our job in the Alliance of Excellence for Research and Innovation on IFORIA, which is an alliance of the different research centers and scientific associations and innovation accelerators and science policy networks that I lead or co-lead, is working on measuring the current performance against these goals, which is the current performance against the concept of sustainability, and then setting the targets that we want to achieve in 2030, 2050, and beyond. Once you do this exercise, you are able to sketch what we call the pathways. the dynamic pathways that will allow us to move from where we are to where we want to go. This is where Euphoria works in more than 120 countries across the world. The last 30 years of its existence, leveraging more than $500 million of research money to achieve this target of sketching detailed pathways for moving from where we are to where we want to go. So the first message is that we can measure sustainability. And this is achieved every year with the Sustainable Development Solutions Network Sustainable Development Report. And we know that only 17% of these targets are on track. AI can help in this measurement. And it's a very detailed and data-hectic measurement and very complex measurement that needs to take into account trade-offs and synergies between very complex natural, economic, and social systems. And then we know where we want to go, because there is a very elaborate policy framework transposing the 17 SDGs into regional and national and subnational explicit policy frameworks of regulations and laws that need to be implemented. An example of this is, of course, the European Green Deal, with 150 new laws and regulations that have been launched since December 2019. So where can we leverage AI and machine learning and deep learning in order to help the sketching of these transition pathways? And why is it important to have detailed transition pathways? Why our work, we think, is important? Because unless you detail the transition pathways, unless you detail the optimal mixture of technologies, transformations, policies, fiscal and financial instruments that you need in order to achieve sustainability, in order to achieve the implementation of sustainable development goals, you need to be extremely clear on the portfolio of investments you are suggesting. And these portfolios of investment can only be sketched in detailed, dynamic, and spatial plans that you need to clarify for each and every spatial unit you are working on. AI is very useful in climate modeling. Climate modeling is about large-scale, complex models that simulate and predict the behavior of atmosphere, the oceans, land surface, and other components of Earth system. So here we can use AI for data analysis and pattern recognition, improving model accuracy and modeling complex processes. And we do use it because these are very complex systems on their own right. And when you need to sketch the pathways from where you are towards full implementation of the SDGs, you need to integrate these complex systems into a mega system that acknowledges the synergies and the trade-offs between the natural system, the economic system, and the social systems. Also, we need AI for downscaling climate models, for developing climate change scenarios analysis and optimization, for energy systems modeling, for land use system modeling, for optimizing decarbonization strategies, for policy development decision support, and for gaining behavioral insights and demand responses, because it's not enough to invest in infrastructure and supply side projects. You also need to invest in demand management in order to achieve a dynamic equilibrium of supply and demand over time for each of the projects in your investment portfolio. So we've used AI very quickly. I don't know how many minutes I have, but we've used AI to figure out the connection between policy frameworks Why is it important to connect different policy frameworks, the SDGs of the UN with the European Green Deal, with the regional policies in the US, with the regional policies in Africa, Asia, and so on? It's important because the value chains of products and goods and services are global. So you need to make sure that the different policies speak to each other. And in order to recover the patterns of synergies and correlations, you really need a deep neural networks to uncover that by including information on the various regulations. So we have
maybe you could,
yes.
yeah.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
I will stop here just in 1 minute. So for this first introduction, just let me say that we make available an open access SDG tracker in order to allow anybody to really identify the connection, the correlation between any policy, national, subnational, regional, with UN policies. I hope to have the opportunity to say more afterwards.
Definitely, we will look forward to your role in the discussion. Thank you very much. Thank you for highlighting the complexity of this system of systems, which is actually creating what I would say a crisis of crisis, and how we can address this type of aspects. I would like to move on to Xaba Korosi, and I believe you have no slides to share, but please go ahead and introduce a little bit yourself, but also your stakes and position in the complex field that we are discussing today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Virginia. And indeed, I haven't brought you any slides, but I would like to build on what we have just heard from Phoebe. And I'm very glad she mentioned some of the topics. But before jumping into the substance, so originally I was a diplomat. In my previous capacity, I was co-chairing the intergovernmental negotiations in the UN that produced the SDGs mentioned by Phoebe. In 2022-23, I was the president of the General Assembly. And in that capacity, I also launched the negotiations producing the Pact for the Future. So AI, on one hand, is a fantastic tool in our hands. On the other hand, is a huge elephant in the room. Let me come back to what Phoebe has mentioned. AI could be ideal to improve our understanding of the SDG performance, our SDG performance. AI should be very, very useful for integrating various data from various fields, because unlike many would believe, we still have difficulties give an answer on the question, are we really making progress on sustainability transition, or we are making regress? We have huge amount of data, but we have no really consolidated system of integrated data management that could take us to drawing the right conclusion. So on one hand, I'm very hopeful that AI will be used much deeper, much broader in evaluation. That would be also very informative for shaping investment policies. It would be much more useful for tracking interrelating nexus among various fields, walks of life, and it would be very useful optimizing positive and reducing negative externalities as results of our investments. Why is it important? The sum and substance, the heart of sustainable policy transition is that we are using 5 types of capitals throughout all our operations. The human capital, social capital, environmental capital, built capital, and financial capital, and we are interchanging them one into another with the hope that we create added value, and through this added value, while keeping a kind of balance among the 5 types of capital, we make progress towards sustainability. But our difficulty is that we do not really keep track on the externalities, be them positive or negative, and therefore we have difficulty telling what is the overall value of different capitals we have and what is the balance among them. So I'm very, very hopeful that AI, which has not been used when we designed the SDGs, it has not been used when we spent the first half of the period for the implementation of the SDGs, could be much more powerful tool for the second half. But let me give you another point which gives me a great deal of concern. It is not the AI in general, which is basically what we use now is the artificial basic intelligence, which is a rather good tool. We are 2 to 5 years away from the artificial general intelligence to come to the surface and come to a dominant force in our operations. That is a very new chapter of development, new conditions when the AI is becoming from a tool into an actor. And unfortunately, we are not prepared for that, neither institutionally nor legally, not in terms of regulations. Why would it be important? Because it will bring irreversible consequences. Not seen consequences impacting the development, impacting many other issues. It will change the conditions of how weapons of mass destruction can and very quickly can spread across the world. It will also bring new conditions posing new critical infrastructure, exposing critical infrastructure vulnerabilities. And in certain cases, it may bring also the possibility of existential risks, not only sustainable development slowing down, but existential risks, since it could be misused to create mass harm or to be developed in ways that are misaligned with human values. So therefore, with some of my colleagues in the framework of the UN Council of Presidents of the General Assembly, we commissioned a report on AGI, artificial general intelligence, to see what are the promises and what are the causes of concern. And we are going to share this report very soon with the member states of the United Nations, including some recommendations, what we'd like to propose to the member states. First and foremost, in order to understand better the possibilities and concerns related to AGI, we propose to create a global AGI observatory under the auspices of the United Nations. It is needed to track progress in AGI-relevant research and development and provide early warnings on AI security to member states. We also would like to propose an international system of best practices and certification for secure and trustworthy AGI. In the future, we would like to see a UN Framework Convention on AGI, and we also would like to develop further a feasibility study on AGI agency, which is not limiting, of course, the development of technology, but it should give a platform of exercising responsibility for all the novelties what we are creating and to make sure it is turned to the best benefit of humanity. So all in all, AI today as it stands is still an untapped resource for speeding up sustainable development transition. we hope to use it much better. And at the same time, let's get prepared for the next stage of AI, the AGI, and let's get prepared in order to mitigate the potential dangers, in fact, danger factors, and let's make the best use of its possibilities. Thank you very much, Virginia.
Thank you very much. Thank you for highlighting the huge potential of AI for contributing to our better understanding and better handling of the SDGs. In terms of AGI, I firmly believe, and as a researcher of AI for over 40 years now, that our luck at this moment is that there is no theoretical nor practical. So we are not prepared from the perspective of policy and legislation and impact, but we are definitely also not prepared from the technology perspective. The biggest danger is not so much the AGI itself, but the misuse of AI by human organizations. And I think that our main efforts at this moment need to be around the misuse of AI with or not AGI capabilities, because even without AGI capabilities, the misuse can be huge. And I would like to see us focusing much more on these misuse capabilities than on some potentially unseen yet capabilities of general intelligence and its impact. But I would like to move on, and I would like now to ask Michael McFarland to give your introductory and position on the topic.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. My name is Michael McFarland. My focus right now is running a nonprofit that's working on sustainable funding for MSMEs. Currently, we're focused on the ASEAN region. My background, I have a little bit of academia. I was a lecturer at Northwestern, did some computer and network research in the late 80s. But my primary career has been in open finance. I have experience at many of the aspects of finance. I've done startups, I've done venture partners, including new tech like biotech. I've worked in options and derivatives and market making. But primarily for the last years, I was the chief architect at Fannie Mae. Fannie Mae is focused on the impact investing in housing. I was chief architect and then ran operations for a number of years. I juggled $5 trillion, didn't get any sleep, but fortunately did not make the front page of the Wall Street Journal or got called in front of Congress. But this is a great example of how impact investing and connecting the large financial markets into what we're trying to do can make a substantial difference. Owning a home allows you to use that equity to invest in retirement and all kinds of other pieces. All of that means I have a deep understanding of big capital. Mostly, like I said, I've been focusing on the funding of MSMEs, but there's also a very significant gap in funding of science. Traditional funding for science is in jeopardy. It's important to keep in mind that large capital wants to flow, but it doesn't understand how to make the bridge. A lot of the words and a lot of the ways that we talk about things when we're on this side of the divide isn't intelligible or in the language that are the people who are the large investors are needing to understand. And so part of what I want to add to this discussion is that open finance has a tremendous number of different mechanisms, each designed to solve different types of problems and different types of structures. Things like venture capital work for very specific types of problems in science at a particular stage that's about to be commercialized. But we have many more tools and many more mechanisms that are important. As I mentioned, large capital, and now I'm talking about financial capital, but there are other types of capital that are controlled, speak a different language and expect different artifacts. In the financial world, we use the word underwriting to help people understand and communicate the risks and balance all of the different capital types. So I apologize, I mispronounced the name, but Sisaba talked about all the different capital pools that are the different capital types, helping large investors, large capital pools understand what all of those are and translating those into mechanisms that they understand can allow us to connect these sort of pools. If you think a lot about research, research just goes through a lot of phases and different potential impacts. Every type of research has different potential impacts. Different investors focus on different phases and focus on different impacts. And so what we need to do is understand how to connect and how to communicate. AI is likely to play a big role, but a lot of it is learning the language and learning the artifacts so that we are able to communicate. One of the things that we spent a lot of time working on in the housing space and now working on the MSME space, but applies to research also, is the lifetime value of home ownership or the lifetime value of a research project, and being able to clearly communicate where its capital is and where it goes. We should partner with Mohan to create a challenge so we can use AI to help bridge that gap. And all of Phoebe's pathways and patterns to impact are all extremely relevant, because those are all of the ways that we need to connect and be able to translate into the ways that the large capital pools and funders are able to understand if we're going to bridge the MSME and the science gap. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you also for linking your presentation to what has been said before, and looking at discussing, and we'll discuss it further, the possibilities to define challenges or opportunities to link the pathways and the importance of connecting finance with the Sustainable Development Goals, with also the possibilities for technology and digital technology in this field. I would like to move on to Gina Matthews.
Hi, everyone. I would like to welcome everyone who's joining us online now, and also everyone who may be watching this in video later. Oops. As Virginia mentioned, she and I are co-chairs of the ACM Global Technology Policy Council. I'm also a professor of computer science at Clarkson University. And somewhat relevant to this conversation, I worked at NIST on the AI risk management framework. So the key points that I want to make here is that we actually know how to do verification and validation of software and hardware systems. This is not a new thing. And the way we know how to do it is just as relevant for AI systems and just as relevant for financial AI systems. We mostly just need to do it. And we can take a lot of inspiration from other critical systems where we have really cared about getting the accuracy, the risk management, the balance of these things right. A classic risk assessment matrix. This one happens to be from the Federal Aviation Administration in the US. You see a 2D matrix with likelihood on one axis and severity on the other. And you fill this in with low risk tiers in the lower right and high risk tiers in the upper left. And you can there's so many things here you can modify. You could define your likelihoods in different ways. You could define the consequences in different ways. This particular set of consequences comes from the IEEE 1012 standard for system, software, and hardware verification and validation, again, including AI systems and financial AI systems. I will notice that here financial is always above negligible. So it's at least marginal in this particular set of definitions. And it's not surprising, right? You may have heard the term your money or your life, YMYL. By definition, finance is something that we care about getting accurate and right. So we have this 2D matrix. And then what do we do with these risk tiers of high to low? Well, At the lowest tier, maybe you just need voluntary best practices. You don't need a lot of careful watching. But at the higher tiers, we want increased verification and validation, including independent verification and validation for the highest tiers. And there's different axes of independence, technological independence, financial independence, managerial independence. When you care about getting it right, you have people who didn't build it, who don't have a horse in the game of saying it's good enough. Take a look and give their independent of opinion if it's really good enough. Also, those likelihoods that I talked about, how often does this happen? Or the severity, how bad was it when there was an error? You can both estimate those things before deployment, and then you should be measuring after deployment and adjusting your belief about where the investment needs to take place. And once a system is deployed, we should be committed to collecting error stats, impact stats, timeline for repair. And I would really like to emphasize the importance of investing in and incentivizing iterative improvement. I've been involved in building software systems for a long time. I don't expect them to be perfect right out of the gate, but I do expect the people who are building them to respond responsibly, to collect and respond responsibly to the clear signals when there's errors, and not just say it's good enough as it is. And that is especially relevant when the users are deciders and there are many other stakeholders who are people being decided about, whether those are decisions about insurance or loans or many other things. So I will leave my remarks at there, but I also have a whole lot more to say that I hope will come up in the panel. And I would invite you to reach out. And I posted a few links in the chat, and I'll especially point to this publication, which is very relevant to what I said today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gina, and great to see you highlighting the importance of considering the likelihood together with the amount or the impact of risk. It's also important, very nice to see that you're highlighting the responsibility of those involved as the many different stakeholders involved, the responsibility of individuals, but also of organizations, and how again all this is tied together in a complex system of systems which in one end are dependent on the financing, but on the other hand also impacting the way finances are organized, and how digital technology and AI has a role there. I would like now to move to Eka Chelavishvili to provide your opinion on this. I'm not sure if you have any slides to share.
No, I don't. We are sort of the late additions to the panel, as I understand, with some of my colleagues, but great to be here. Thank you for the invitation. It's a very good addition to have sort of webinars against the backdrop of this very huge conference that we're attending here in Spain, Seville. But briefly, I know that the time is constrained on our end as well, but a little bit of introduction about myself, perhaps, as my colleagues have done in the panel. I've been not only with the government of Georgia, as it has been described previously, where digitalization has been a pivotal part, an integral part of the transformation of my country after the revolution in the mid-2000s at that time, and that has been sort of a common thread throughout my career after that as well in the development world, where I've been working with USAID and EU for almost a decade, a member of the advisory committee of USAID. I've been working in Ukraine for about 8 years, leading the anti-corruption project of the EU and USAID. And then digitalization has been a pivotal part at that time as well, ensuring better governance, transparency, accountability, and delivery of the service to serve public services to the people. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees of Nizami Ganjavi Center. We have partnered for quite some time now with ITU, have been promoting on our end as an organization a declaration that has been adopted at COP29 in Baku, but then we engage now at ITU as well in terms of contributing for the implementation of the green digital transformation in that end as well. So that's in a nutshell, so to say, what is my field of interest in the field, and then part of expertise, even though I'm not an expert in IE myself. I'm a public international lawyer by education. Now, I'd approach this issue from a different angle, I guess, to add value to what already has been mentioned. When we speak about IE and then what it can be in terms of how much it can be used, if there's a tool or companion, so to say, when it comes to making life better for the humanity, I see it as not just continuation and part of the overall digitalization of our world from an analog world that we've lived in previously, and then how that can be capitalized and utilized for accelerating the development per se. But we need to remember that it is intrinsically still linked with the governance per se. It's not a separate digital world, which is disattached from the world in which policymakers rule and govern, and then societies develop as the social, in different ways of the social fabric develops, and then not just the sort of the social capital or human capital in this regard. And then with that, how much the digital reflects either developments or deficiencies in a mirrored way of what we have in the governance field per se. We've talked about here in the conference as well about equity, about ensuring accessibility to this development and connectivity throughout the world of different parts of societies and countries, even which are not as well connected with this digital infrastructure to the digital world in which many of us are already living in different ways and to the different scale. And if we think about that, how the equitability of that, accountability and ethics of development of digital world of that kind is still related to how the policymakers are making the rules, not only in their own national jurisdictions, but internationally as well. So my message here is that we shall not forget that when it comes to how AI develops per se and becomes more and more part of our life, economically, that be finance or you name it, in any different field that we are talking about, including in environment and climate, we shall not lose our focus from the need of development of accountability, transparency, good governance, rule of law, all of those fundamentals that are not evaporated by digitalization of our lives, but need to be even more attended to, I would say, so that we don't lose track of how the pace of development of AI and digital world in itself could blur that vision that we might have, as if it's not either that relevant anymore or can be overtaken with easy solutions from AI. And climate and environment is a good example of that. I mean, some of the elements of that have been already mentioned, how much modeling and then mitigation of environmental challenges like now, in not just the sort of the how much AI itself is an emitter, so to say, of emissions, and then could be a challenge with the data centers and all of that when it comes to the climate related issues, but how on mitigation side of it, it could be used better. But if the policies or the regulations that are driving the development in national jurisdictions that be internationally are not well geared and committed politically towards the solutions that we need to achieve commonly, I would believe, as a humanity or countries separately taken, then all this potential of how much AI could be better used to have the targeted approach, tailor-made approach, precision of data use, will be wasted at best, or can be manipulated and misused in the worst case scenario. Not just the private companies or the monopolies of the world, but then by the regimes or the governments that might very well misuse that for either strengthening of their geopolitical presence and gravitas, or internally their own internal political systems against the interest of human rights that be, or the common good that we want to achieve when it comes to preserving the nature and climate habitable for human beings in a good sense of what habitability could mean in that then quality wise. Now, one aspect that we haven't touched during this discussion, and just to sort of the pinpoint maybe some of the issues from the discussion, is conflict and post-conflict situations. And this is a separate area where AI can bring an enormous potential of more speedy recovery and reconstruction of the countries and communities that have suffered a lot. Ukraine is the closest in this case to me with all my not only work experience, but personal experience. And I can tell that when it comes to combination of how much in a society that is already very digitalized, and that's the key word in many ways for Ukraine's survival, in addition to some other factors, obviously, as well, is that the years that might have been needed in terms of feasibility studies, in terms of modeling and understanding how at best the limited resources that will be available for a large scale destruction that this nation has suffered could be optimized and made much more efficient with introduction of the AI tools. It's an enormous potential that could be well used and integrated by donor community that be, or obviously Ukrainian authorities themselves, but harnessing that in the way that ensures accountability of how the resources will be spent will bring the best result. So in other words, using AI for the fundamentals, what used to be for centuries and then the last decades as well, of delivering public services, ensuring good governance, data-based policy-making decisions as much as possible, and then bringing more transparency how the public resources are being used. AI can enhance in a very significant way potential not only for the governments and policymakers, but for the civil society organizations, investigative journalists, and in that sense, accessibility of those tools, openness for those who might have limited resources now to utilize these resources could be the best combination to assure that ethical rules are maintained, that we still see that AI, I don't know how to say it properly, serves the humans rather than we are becoming at some point a study object of the advanced intelligence, could be, element, how we a factor that could bring more assurance perhaps against the backdrop of the big questions that have been raised here as well, how much we use it for the good rather than could be threatened in the way how in a speedy way AI is developing in our analog digital world in which human beings are living right now. I'll end at that. Sorry if I've been a bit long in my introduction, and then I'll be ready to answer questions if there will be any towards me.
Thank you. You raised very important issues, including, of course, the importance of properly functioning digital infrastructure as a precondition to all what we need to do, and the capabilities of using AI and other technology to support development and the SDGs. You also referred to the importance of a participatory and the responsibility of stakeholders and of the many different types of stakeholders and disciplines. And I think that you end up with a very important issue, this issue that all further development and the use of technology needs to be humanity first and not technology first. It's not using technology because we can, but we need much more to think about how to use technology because we should, and how should we be using this technology. So this importance of a humanity first rather than what we are unfortunately being forced or convinced of, that we need to take a technology first or an AI first perspective. I think you put it very clearly, and very important issues. Before we go into a bit of a discussion between all of you and then with the public, I would like still to give Yanis another opportunity, because you talked only as president of ACM, but as a part of the panel, please, it's now your time to introduce your position. You need to unmute yourself.
Yes, this is also something necessary. So I hope that now you can see my slides and you can hear me. I will, okay, now, okay. I'll talk as a computing scientist person, by the way, besides being ACM president and a professor of informatics at the University of Athens in Greece, And also, I was the president of Athena Research Center for 10 years, focusing on AI. Lots of my work is around data and mostly interdisciplinary data. That's where I get my inspiration. That's why I collaborate very closely with the things that Professor Kunduri mentioned. This is a bird's eye view, simplified, but I think quite representative of what is artificial intelligence life cycle. We have lots of data. We build technology, we feed the data with technology, and we create artificial intelligence. And we have the creation side, and we have the use side, where someone has, on some challenge, on some problem, on some question, on some context, artificial intelligence comes up and gives us this solution. This is, if you want, very abstract view of what artificial intelligence is. And all the money goes into how we can collect data, how we can build the best and fastest and most advanced technologies, so that then we can have a whole bunch of artificial intelligence that we let deploy in a whole bunch of contexts. So far, the technology companies, governments, and so on have been focusing on this. Yes, they care about the applications, obviously, but this is the main focus. This is the biggest investment. But there are humans in this AI life cycle, and there are others, but I'll identify 4. We have the people who build the technology. They have the people who feed the data of the technology. We have those that pose the problems, shape the problems, conceive of the problems. And then we have those that live with the consequences of what the artificial intelligence said. And if we want to look in all of this, both the people and the technologies, there are needs. And let me say, let's go into. I'll touch upon the 3 pillars of the triangle of knowledge: education and research primarily, plus also policy that comes as a very important aspect. So there is technological bias, algorithmic bias. There is data bias. These 2 people up on top. And then, excuse my term, I'll say naivete with respect to the technology and what it can do and what it means, both on those that conceive the problems and those that benefit from or suffer from the consequences. And we need education. I don't mean about formal education. We mean training. We mean the skilling in the computing side to avoid bias, and the data science side. But also we need training and engagement in the society at large, including the finance world, including policymakers, including everyone, to understand what this gives us. And then money has to be invested in this. We have to invest people in money to bring them close to artificial intelligence, talking about the lower level, because otherwise the gap will be increasing. And when we go to research, I have to mention this. There are many things about the data, the quality, the truth, the privacy, explainability of AI, safety of AI. We need investments in that. And some of it exists, but nothing as much as necessary compared to some other endeavors that, may I say, is not as critical and affecting the world as much. And then we go to policy challenges. Accountability, a mistake by AI. Who is accountable for this? And unfortunately, policymakers in certain parts of the world, they want to get rid of all regulation. They want to get rid of all accountability on the creators of AI, so that competition in terms of the profits are the main characteristic. And I mentioned just accountability. There are many other policy issues and also existential threats. What are we going to do with this? And I'll mention one: fear that people, with respect to, for example, people losing their jobs. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you're not familiar with that, unfortunately, it separates the needs of people: basic needs, psychological needs, and self-fulfillment needs, if you want, cognitive, and so on. And if I want to break these 3, most of the efforts are AI, focus on the top, focus on the people who have solved the problems in the lower levels, and they want to advance their aesthetics, their cognitive, their lives of progress in the Western world, if you want, the global North, if you want. But what about the lower levels? And there's a very big danger with the kind of AI that is mostly produced now and where the investments go, still the focus to be on the top, and then the needs of a huge percentage of the world whose basic needs that need to be fulfilled are not fulfilled. We want to focus on this. We have to change the investments in AI to focus on applications and needs of local communities and underserved communities. This is the world, global North, global South, however this is defined. And the Finance for Development to a large extent says about how the global North will finance the global South. And unless the goal is for all of them to be equally strong, that's the goal. And finance people, I'm not one of them, have to find a way. But if we continue with the way we're going, I think that the thing will be even more separated. The North will be richer and the South will be deprived of the benefits of AI. If we divert our investments in the right way, we cannot have this picture. And let me say one more thing. Infrastructure is needed. PDI was mentioned and others. And AI can be a tremendous tool in our hands and in serving, in financing the development with the 17 goals that we have as the goal to create a better place. But also the way AI is trained, the way AI is used, it can be a killer of all the sustainable development goals, starting from climate, and create hell because how much energy it consumes. So in addition to research investing in having much more energy efficient AI, the infrastructures that we deploy in the parts of the world that are not as well served, that need the most of help of AI to advance and get developed, we have to make sure that the infrastructure that we deploy there are respecting the climate, are respecting the environment, are respecting the needs of those people, and not make their environment even worse than it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Yanis. And it's a very nice bridge to the discussion that we still have a little bit of time and to go. And I think that what you a couple of things that you said are exactly what I would like to open up for the discussion between all the panelists. The issue of the need to focus on AI, on the more basic needs of population, so the SDGs, and also the fact that in order to focus and profit from the capabilities and the potential of AI to address those more basic needs that are a precondition for all of us across the world to have aspire to a better well-being in life. That requires, like you say, investment. So maybe the question to all of you, and I would like, maybe you can just put your digital hands up if you would like to reply, would be on this issue of how are we going to ensure and what kind of ideas and original directions can we think about for financing the digital infrastructure in underserved regions, which is kind of the basis for all of this, because otherwise we are risking again and again the digital exclusion of the groups that are not enough served, not by the digital infrastructure and therefore also not by the benefits of AI. So it's a question to all of you. And after that, I would like to open the question to the public. And please, again, for the public, if you have questions, put them on the Q&A, and then we can see from there how we address your questions. But I see, Fube, you have something to say on this. Please go ahead. Try to be as concise as possible, 1-2 minutes per each one of you, because we need to finish on time.
Yes.
Thank you.
So I would like to highlight once again this importance of the systemic approach. So you cannot care for the people if you don't have explicit understanding of what is needed in order to care for them. So the Sustainable Development Solutions Network Global Climate Hub, and I want to share this structure with you just to keep it in mind. We have these different 3 layers. And these different 3 layers make explicit what you need in order to care for the people, in order to make the digital infrastructure, the science, the technology, the regulatory system serving the people. First of all, you need to sketch how you are gonna integrate the systems that support the welfare of people, the climate system, the energy system, the transport system, the land use system, the marine use system, the health system, the innovation system, the socioeconomic system, and solve the integration of this into dynamic pathways from moving from where you are to where you want to go. And this is a hectic mathematical modeling exercise. However, this mathematical modeling exercise is needing information from all the stakeholders. That's why we need the second layer that you see, the living labs of the relevant stakeholders from each and every system, from each and every scale you work on, in order to agree on the initial conditions, in order to agree on where they're going to go, that is, validate the existing policy framework, and at the same time, integrate their local knowledge, need, preferences, visions, fears, and so on. So this is a very hectic, science-based, interdisciplinary exercise and intradisciplinary exercise with the stakeholders that we are implementing across the countries of the world, currently working on 120 countries, and currently putting all the information open access available. So digital, so just let me say this, digital infrastructures are there to really make the collection of the data, the identification of the tools, and the results, the additional tools that can be used by the stakeholders in order to understand explicitly what needs to be done, the investment, the portfolio investment of infrastructure projects, technological projects, skilling and upskilling projects, transformational policy projects that are needed to actually achieve the change. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And indeed, the systemic issue is one that comes again and again. Mohan, you would like to add something?
Yes, I'll very briefly mention, I mentioned about India Stack, and that's a great example of, in fact, what Phoebe alluded to, an open source approach. I think in order to make sustainable development and provide access to everyone, I think computer scientists, I think we always have had an open source movement which enables large scale adoption by the global south as well. And I think India has shown having an open source stack for digital identity, for payments, and now for credit platform. I think this is an example where this can spread all around the world. And I think we should encourage more and more, especially given that a lot of the AI development is unfortunately going in the opposite direction, closed source models, closed source data. And I think we should definitely push for and encourage more open source, open data platform development.
Very important. Thank you so much. And I see Eka, you
Yeah,
would like
just very briefly, just to add to the importance of understanding of the capacity gap that we face now in different parts of the world right now in policymaking circles. And it's not just the age division that we see now. In some countries, you have younger generations of governments, in some not, but it's just the capacity gap in general. And I think that IFIs or development banks or any organizations that do financing of development or microfinancial assistance of the countries combined with conditionalities need to be mindful how they integrate bridging the gap of capacity in digitalization and AI in the countries that are recipients or beneficiaries, so that the help is conducive of bridging of that gap, because otherwise it will be an inevitable growth, unfortunately, of that gap. There will be some circle of countries that will leap forward and will achieve more for the benefit of their own people. There will be some countries that might have had good intentions, not corrupt, well intended to have that development, but because of the capacity gap, they will be lagging behind. And now the pace of lagging behind will be scalable in a much quicker way rather than previously we've experienced that.
Thank you very much. Actually, I was last week in an AI summit organized by UNESCO, and this was one of the issues that came again and again, the importance of policymakers and the well-informed policymakers that are able to address these issues across regions for each country and so on. So thank you for highlighting that. I don't see no other hands at this moment, but maybe continuing on this discussion, one of the issues that we have kind of skirted around is the issue of the cost of AI itself. So AI is not just a beneficial for, if well utilized, beneficial for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, but also to address systemic problems, to monitor all that. But the systems that we are building at this moment have huge environmental impacts, in terms of the water that are needed to deal with the infrastructure, the energy, the use of rare metals and materials and resources. So maybe there is any one of you which would like to react on this issue of the balance or the interaction between the opportunities for using AI, but also the necessity to look at a better, a more green development of the AI systems themselves, and how that can be addressed also from a systemic perspective. Fibe, would like to, and then I see Ika. Thank you.
So very quickly, this is again the point of systemic analysis. You need to identify for each solution. AI is a tool, is a solution. The footprint on the different systems is not just emissions, it's not just water, it's also land use, it's also infrastructure that is needed. Yeah. So you need to be explicitly detailed about what resources and what are the impacts of using these resources today, in the medium run and in the long run, for enabling different combinations of technologies. And here is where you need the detail, and here is where you can identify the opportunities for technological advancement in reducing the negative footprint on natural capital of this very important technology. And the other thing that you also need to identify is that, okay, you can design your investment portfolios, identifying the needs for different investments in technological advancement, in infrastructure, and so on. But at the same time, you need top-down regulation in terms of regulating how this new tool will be used. And let me just say, in a report that we did on a generative AI AI, usual AI, let me say, no country in the world has an explicit legal framework for generative AI, which is where we are going. And very few countries are leading the development of plain AI regulation as it is. And finally, another report showcases that the skills that are needed, even in Europe, for implementing the twin transition, digital and green, 85 of those skills are missing from the labor market. So we have a lot to do.
Thank you very much. There is a lot to do indeed. I would like to ask Ike, please try
Yeah,
to be...
very briefly. I think that it's has been a very good beginning in terms of generating an international commitment and awareness of that at COP29 with the declaration that was adopted with ITU being the lead actor in this direction. I'm proud that we've been, as NGIC, part of that discourse. Now, on the road to Belém, there is quite a lot that is happening now with ITU on a regular basis, as we have been updated very recently, even today, by the deputy director as well, so that there is this whole international dimension to it as well, because no single country can do fully the justice to the cause that I've just mentioned. A part of it is just awareness of the depth of the issue as well, what actually AI requires, that it has its own issues related to the energy consumption that it requires, and then equity between the countries that are consuming it, but then, where are data centers, and then most of the energy consumption then could be switched. And at the end of the day, it's even at the level of individual consumption, because I've just recently read an article. I've been surprised that now that everybody experiments using AI, sometimes there are trivial questions and then learning experiences that people do with AI, asking questions or even thanking AI for some of the answers that they receive. And if that is aggregated in terms of how much energy even at that level is being consumed, it's a ridiculous figure. So it's a multi-layered question, as Phoebe mentioned, but then without sort of international, not just awareness, but action in this direction, I think we will enter into a very significant or deep trap in the direction when AI will be misused on issues where it shall not be prioritized that much, and then energy consumption will be wasted to some degree in this direction as well.
Thank you very much. And before I move to Xaba and then Yanis, just to let all of you know that there are a couple of questions in the Q&A. Some of them have been answered directly on the Q&A. The other ones that I see there are being answered as we discuss now. So I would like to end up with first telling also that in the chat box there is also a lively discussing going on. So look at what is in the chat box as well. And maybe now just very shortly giving the time to Xaba and to Yanis to give some input on this, but please try to be as short as possible. We are very much towards the end of our time now. Xaba?
Thank you much, Virginia. Phoebe and Eka have alluded already that on one hand, yes, the deployment of AI is now taking about 1.5% of all the electricity produced in the world, and it is projected to reach 5% within a couple of years before 2035. But on the same token, we are expecting AI to help us reducing the environmental impact, including energy production or energy use through an energy efficiency, at least for 8%. So the balance should be positive. But Virginia, reacting on your invitation and answering one of the questions posed on the chat, where should we be so much convinced that artificial general intelligence will be with us? First and foremost, it is forecasted to be here within 2 to 5 years, and the reason is that we have never ever in the history of humankind invested so much into one single technology. It's $800 billion now committed to this development. The capabilities of the large models are being doubled every 100 days. We never had such an exponential growth of any technology in the world. So it is very well expected or forecasted that that we are going to have to deal with the impacts, positive and negative impacts of artificial general intelligence. My concern is that in order to have a kind of global intergovernmental understanding on a complex case and to have a kind of framework of understanding, it never took less than 2 years to come to a kind of agreement. In some cases, it was 10 years. So if we are going to face a cardinally new situation within 2 to 5 years, it is absolutely time to get down and get prepared for what is awaiting for us. The last point, why is
I
it?
think we need, sorry, Xaber, given the time, I would like to thank you. And I understand all of you would have much more to say, but thank you on those points. And indeed, I fully address also the importance of addressing the large capabilities of AI, whether we are going to call it AGI or something else, that's a different issue. And what we really mean by AGI and by the large and complex capacities of the monopolic use of AI by very large organizations and players. That's an issue that I think we all need to address very quickly. But really, with 30 seconds to each of you, I would like to leave the time to Yanis and to Gina to say something, but I will stop you after 30 seconds.
Much of what I want to say has been said. One thing I want to say is that ACM is trying to be the conduit of computing and computing developments with other scientists, because nothing can be solved without AI, without computing. And just by computing, without thinking of the true application of the economists, the environmentalists, and so on, then the computing people, us, will not do anything useful. So ACM has an effort to bring us all together, and this panel exactly is the one step in the heart of UN activities to achieve that. And hopefully with Virginia and Gina, but also the entire population of ACM will be able to move forward faster in that.
Thank you so much. Gina, 30 seconds.
I very similarly wanted to say that if you listen to this panel and this workshop and think we really need to do things to control the development of AI in the right direction, that we would invite you to get involved with the technology policy groups at ACM. It's not just for computer scientists, it's for anyone who is working in computing related things, who cares about getting technology policy right. It is a powerful tool, and powerful tools can be used for good or ill. You have a sharp knife, it can do the most wonderful healing surgeries, and it can also stab people. We know that. What we need is technology policy that accentuates the good and controls the bad, and please come and work with us on that.
Exactly. Thank you very much for those words. And indeed, please reach out to Gina, to Yanis, to me, if you are interested in knowing more, in joining us in these efforts. And I would like then to stop now here. We are a little bit over time, but thank you all for assisting, to participating with the questions that you put, with the comments on the chat, and of course, all our wonderful panelists and the organizers behind the scenes that made this all possible. Thank you so much, and I look forward to a continued discussion.
Thank you, Virginia, for a masterful moderation. Thank you.
Let's continue the discussion. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.